William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
There's confusion around a number of things, and I just want clarification whether this is the kind of issue that will be addressed in the cultural planning process too, because I'm not surprised to your recommendation, but I would have thought that it would be included as part of the larger process.
I think it's definitely in keeping with us trying to be more user-friendly to the community. This is one that, since I've gotten here, essentially, it needs to be kind of cleaned up. I wouldn't say it's a strategic change as much as a doing better business today change. It's not to say it can't change again. This is just to kind of bring clarity to current business. It's not fundamental. I wouldn't characterize this. Somebody disagrees.
Yeah, actually, and it gets this going, which it really needs to start going. If we wait, then we're not,
And we're not
put it in the
cleaned
whole
up.
plan. It'll be part of the whole policy. So we already have it in place to right the policy. If we don't move on it now, then we're waiting to 18, 19, 20, and that's kind of, when this is very simple.
Look, it may not be a reasonable word, but I think it's fair to suggest that since we are in, I think, a transition process right now, as commissioners maybe think of questions to ask between now and then. Remember, you still will have the ultimate plan put before you. And if there are elements left out of it that should be in, that also is an opportunity for you basically to express very, very strongly your position before the cultural plan is passed. So I think this gives us an interim fix to deal with parent items and opportunities out there right now. For the long term, I think the question is really right at the bottom of it. We're in less than another 7 months. We will be, quote unquote, placing a new cultural plan on the table. And there may be information and items that we've done as we have gone through that process that we might think ought to be a more appropriate placement or fix for the cultural plan. So I don't think this is the last opportunity. We have the opportunity, I guess, to give you this interim, if you will, this briefing. This is not asking for approval at this point. This is a briefing. They'll go forward with the current program with some amendments, but they will bring back a final document before us that we have to figure out.
And there's other changes with other funding programs that will be the time getting the cultural policy done before we can really kind of launch into do this.
Yeah, and that time right now is anywhere from a year to almost a year before the full plan is done. So this is an opportunity to serve those people existing now. But that does not mean we will not have an opportunity to come back and address really creative and more, I think, innovative ways to serve these communities that we're dealing with. Is that it?
And the nice thing, we're going to start by giving them real names. So you won't be totally lost when I start about
We'll be out of the
Real names, that sounds very quite intriguing.
So this will be the cultural funding program.
Okay. I'm sorry, I hate to keep moving forward, I want to see get to the part of the agenda. Okay? All right, thank you so much. Now, Arts Month planning update.
I think you all have the printout. At the last meeting, I gave a quick overview, and it's all getting confirmed. In fact, I got the confirmation of a speaker today. But this is a detailed calendar for April. And then if you look at the key dates, I guess on slide 2, that we would love to have commissioners for is the kickoff press conference on March 28th, the Wednesday before the month. The mayor's table conversation is Monday, April 9th. It'll be a panel discussion. And then Arts Advocacy Day is April 17th at Latino Cultural Center, and it's usually over the lunchtime hour. The keynote for that is Randy Engstrom, who is my counterpart in Seattle, and has probably done some of the best work in the country, both on racial equity and cultural equity, as well as activating non-traditional art spaces. And of course, with all of the keen interest on a certain company out of Seattle, we thought he might have some interesting things to tell us in Dallas. Also, the next is a full calendar. I think I mentioned this last month, but April is Poetry Month, and OCA, we curate a citywide celebration of arts every year. Last year, we hired some curators to decolonize Dallas, and this year we have a fantastic in-house team doing it. Brittany DuBose and Charlotte Sanderson and Rafael Tamayo from the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. So you'll see all of the different spoken word events that are now calendared and finding spaces. And it has just been unbelievable how many wonderful organizations and creatives we have that are going to be part of this effort all month. It is hot. So this kind of gives you an overview of the whole month with the other events layered on. The Dallas Arts District Block Party on the 14th is presenting some wonderful dancers that Titus is bringing in. And then obviously all of the arts groups that are already doing amazing programming will be doing their total productions as they normally would, and it'll all be on the Arts Month website, which is getting populated now. I think that's it. I just wanted to let y'all know those dates. Last but not least, the call for proposals is already out about the OCA programming at the cultural centers, ARC-214. And it's the first time all 4 cultural centers have ever curated one holistic show together. So you might be an artist that would normally present here or in South Dallas, but who knows, your art might show up at the Bathhouse. And so it's, again, a citywide celebration of arts. 800? Oh, I didn't hear the number. Okay, awesome, thank you. Yeah. And then another just quick thing, Anne Marie Gann started yesterday with our department. We are thrilled. As you all know, we have a very small team, and she is an SMU Mamba intern, which is the Master's of Business Administration and Master's of Arts. Former Bain consultant, lots of history of working in the arts, both in Atlanta as well as Dallas, so we are thrilled that she has joined the team as of yesterday. And we have lots to keep her busy. And then I know there's been some questions because this is an abbreviated agenda. But next month's meeting is not the 3rd Thursday, it's the 4th Thursday. If you remember, we bumped it because of spring break to March 22nd. So please mark your calendars accordingly. And in the meantime, the city budget process is kicking off. We will be revisiting the sexual harassment language that we had such a good discussion on last month. The Civil War Monuments update, which will be going to council, I think I last time told y'all February, it got bumped by council for their retreat. And then obviously the final arts month. But if y'all have other items that you need to know, please let us know. So that's all I have. Sure.
Thank you very much. Again, sorry for,
Yeah,
I really don't want to apologize for this first of all. We're trying to, we need to do that because we'd like to get you into the public planning process and facilitated by our special facilitators. I'll ask the chair ask the executive director. To introduce. So again, thank you so much. And on other questions that came today, if they're in if they're in the grants program that you have prior to the next meeting, questions that you have as commissioners, you don't have to wait until the next meeting to ask them. You can email them in to Charlotte, for example, between now and the next commission. That gives a little opportunity for some preparation to respond to these things more I think in depth when we get to. Secondly, I would say the same thing is true in the area of the public arts program. If there are questions that you have regarding that prior to the next commission meeting, it's an opportunity to for you to call Kay and her staff or email her and her staff for those questions so we can try to have some response. They'll also help our meetings run just a little bit smooth and not be so shocking because we just really don't have enough time here to get in depth and everything I'd like for us to get in depth on. And this is my other really question for you to think about, Mr. Executive Director. Since this meeting has been bumped from the 3rd Thursday to the 4th Thursday, many people around the table have probably already planned the 3rd Thursday. And maybe some of the new people don't know. So I'm concerned with how that may impact them. I don't mind the meeting being changed, but I'm concerned about how we lose commissioners, how those actual dates, even if they're bumped by the city or whatever the agenda is, if they're bumped, and they can't be because they've made other plans for that particular day. Let's look into if there's any way, is there any buffer for them? I'm really still concerned with commissions being bumped out at the end of the term for some dates, if you will, or structures that's not quite so clean. And so, if you just talk to the city attorney about that and see what we can do. I've spoken with them numerous times in my short tenure here on that very, very same matter, because I'm concerned that some very, 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 very strong people who work very, very hard sometimes are put in some very difficult situations. The only other thing I would add is that between now and we only have this a few more months, and then we're in June already. I know that the staff is already entering the budget cycle. So the next
Actually, the
meeting.
kickoff meeting is next week.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I know that the city council has already entered the budget cycle, because I've listened to every meeting, and I know everything that they've said. But I know it's going to be hitting us, so I'm concerned that if, in fact, we have to add an additional special meeting, hopefully over the next, during the next 90 days, to give the commission an in-depth look at what's been proposed, if we're going to be advocates and informed advocates going forward, then I'm happy to offer a special meeting in order to do that, just for budget.
Great.
Okay? All right, with that being said, again, thank you all for your patience and your forbearance as you go forward. I'm delighted again you all are here again. I think I'm delighted to be back for a minute. And I will turn this over now to our extraordinary executive director, Ms. Jennifer.
Thank you. And thank you all. I've really been looking forward to today. I think it was back in December that John Paul suggested this meeting, which needed to be a dedicated commission meeting talking about the cultural plan, because some of you were around in September when we kicked off the work, but even prior to that, I mean, the RFP for the consultants was done in early last spring. The fundraising predated many of you. So even though the kickoff meeting was in September, that represented almost probably a year of work leading up to just that date. So we needed to get all together as one body to discuss the cultural plan. And I appreciate y'all working with us to dedicate the majority of the entire meeting. So I'm thrilled to introduce Joy Bailey Bryant, who is a partner with Lord Cultural Resources. She comes with tons of experience in doing this. Chicago, working on the African American History Museum at the Smithsonian. She's currently working on another project in Bermuda. I don't know how Dallas competes, but she has been a joy to work with, truly, and I don't mean that just because her name's Joy. But, you know, Lizzie McWillie from BC Workshop, if you have been to a cultural plan meeting, they are doing so much of the heavy lifting locally and are just a wealth of knowledge. And then Alyssa Hopeland from HRNA, and I did not know that they were a downtown neighbor, and they've done some amazing work on the analysis. So I'm going to turn it over to Joy now. I'm purposely going to let y'all take it from here and just listen and take notes seriously. So take it away.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to the commission. Mr. Chair, can I ask if I can walk up there, if I can present from the front?
Do you have a fan?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Because this way you all can look at the screen and not have to turn back and forth. And thank you all for this opportunity to engage with you. And this really is going to be an engagement, right? So I'm going to present some information to give you a bit of a preview, really, to give you a bit of a preview of what is actually happening. And then we're going to be able to really get into that conversation, so you'll have a grounding. Today, I really have to thank you, commissioners, not just for being here, but for all of the work that you've done to make this engagement process really successful. We're still in it, we're still doing it, we're actually gaining more and more meetings as we come to the end. It's like now people are still finally discovering the process. But I have to call out some names. Commissioner Ella Good Johnson really brought out her community. Commissioner James White, Jesse Hornbuckle, Linda Blaze. You guys have reached out into your communities, into your professional networks. You have made these things success. With Lori's thought, we really appreciate everything that you're doing. I also want to let you know that we're going to review the work today. We're also going to go into a little bit of information research that we're doing on some comparable cities. So how does Dallas stack up what's relevance there, and what information should we be taking away, and what questions do you have that we need to investigate further. That's a very important point here. This is really a touch point. You are, at this moment, we're still in engagement. We're still in the research phase. So what we're doing here is showing you a little bit of the kind of what we're hearing and wanting to get some of your reactions so that we might be able to go in appropriate directions. What are your thoughts on what this could be possibly meaning and what opportunities there are that we need to investigate further? So that's essentially this, this agenda. Alyssa Hoagland is actually going to come up and present some information on our business plan model for the arts. And I think you'll be really, this information is great. It's amazing. Her information is even juicier. So, and together we're going to have a real good, robust discussion after. So this is brief. I just want to give you an idea of where we are. I kind of summarized already that we're in this kind of real midpoint. We're still in phase one. And like I said, this is our opportunity, you know, a little bit of a touch point. There are more opportunities to come, so don't feel like this is the only one, but we really did think it was time to come back to you with information. So when we talk about engaging all of Dallas, you'll remember when I came to you and spoke in September, we talked about all of the different things we were going to do to reach out across the city. Some of the things that we've done, this is actually as of the end of January, we have actually done so many more meetings in the 2 weeks since this kind of point was approached. We've had the 14 district-wide community conversations, 32 partner events, and existing and partner events are when we get with an organization. So for instance, when we go to a neighborhood watch meeting in a particular community, if we're going into Dallas Public Works, we spoke with some of their groups yesterday. When we go into just partnering opportunities, VCAT in Victory Meadows, we went and spoke at one of their meetings and talked with their participants. I want to point out that we have had, if you look at this 1600 number, the Cultural Ecosystem Survey, if you will remember, the cultural ecosystem is where we are plotting all of the different arts and cultural opportunities within the city of Dallas. So that's when people are able to go onto the website, or if we're at a meeting or at any of the existing events, we have the maps and they can plot where they go to experience culture. The importance of this is it may not particularly be in the Latino Cultural Center. It could be. That's actually one of the larger bubbles. But it could also be in a home where people are having quilting circles and people are enjoying bands in different environments. It could be in a park. We have a lot of parks that are coming up as places where arts and cultural offerings, and they're telling us what they're doing in those places. So you'll see that that's come up a little bit. So right now we have 439 unique locations that have been mapped through that. So just a clear point here that as of the end of January, in person, we had engaged over 3,500 people, and that's just in person. So we are very excited to say that we have participation from every zip code in the city of Dallas. One of the things that we're doing is just to understand where we're reaching people. We have people fill out surveys. And we're actually looking at continuously the surveys to understand where are we not seeing as many people, where do we then need to reach out into those communities and go. So where you see the circles larger is where we're getting a lot of participation, and where they're smaller is where you're not seeing as much participation. So we have reached out into those communities to get further conversation going on. And these are a lot of existing events, because in these places, in these zip codes, for instance, we know that it's more important to actually partner with the organizations to really get a critical mass of people. So who are we talking to? Just to give you an idea, if you can see with your bionic eyes, that we are, that the majority of, you see we're getting, the important point here, I just wanted to point out, is that the color is what the Dallas Cultural Plan is getting results. And the gray is the city of Dallas. So this is how we're grading ourselves, if you will. We are trying to match what the city of Dallas looks like. So this is how we're saying we're engaging Dallas. So 18 to 34, you'll see we're at 24%, the city is at 27%. 35 to 54, 35 to 54, 34% to 26%. We're particularly excited about that because these are the ages of people that it's particularly hard to get to, and these are in-person engagements, so it's particularly hard to get to this particular group, 18 to 44, but we're getting in that group. And then over 35, 37% for the cultural plan and 21% in the city. So we are seeing the kind of averages on age look good. Here, with the racial makeup, we see that we're 3% Asian, 4% in the city, 18% Black for the cultural plan, 24% in the city. So we're working harder on each of these. White 59% to 63%. White, and it goes on multiple and other. For Hispanic or Latino, we're seeing that we are getting to 32% we've got 32%, whereas the city is at 41%. So we still got a little bit of work to do there, and we're working further. And actually some of these numbers have gone up because we've been able to do different things, even as I said, in the last 2 weeks, to get further into these communities. So I promise I'm going to keep going quickly, then we're going to get to the discussion time. Just to let you know that we're on website and social media. Idyllic Interactive is our engagement, our interactive engagement group agency. And some of you, I'm looking around because some of you all actually attended the Black Panther opening and had the chance, I think, to stand up and be introduced. So I thought that was kind of fun, people seeing the cultural affairs commissioners in different places. I'll just skip right down to this point that the content has reached over 65,000 people, 60% women, and half of them between the ages of 18 and 24. So we're really excited about what is happening on social media and with the website. So what are we hearing? We're hearing, I'm going to do this with that consultancy cautionary tale, right? This is very much a midpoint, or a touch point, I shouldn't even say a midpoint. These are some of the things that are rising to the surface. And the way that we're getting information through all of the conversations, we're taking notes, through all of the table conversations, excuse me, we're taking notes, and we are actually putting them in an Excel spreadsheet and coding them so that we can start to really see and sorting, so we can start to really see things as they rise to the surface. So with that process, what we've been able to see is that, and this is actually in the order of how things are coming out right now. This is just what we're hearing right now. Equitable access to cultural experiences. So across neighborhoods and throughout the city, people are concerned about there being equitable opportunities, and access could be something around cost access, which you see, it could be something around transportation, it could be something around the types of programs that are offered, equity across so many different factors. So, and this is what people are really most concerned with right now, that we're seeing that rise to the surface. Cost is also a major barrier. It's actually enough that you have to pull it out. It's a major barrier in experiencing the arts as well as in producing the arts. So you've got both the production and consumption situation going on there. With diversity, we're hearing that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in leadership, staffing, offerings, and experiences. As you'll see, some of these topics overlap each other. You can see very much how diversity gets into equitable access, cost into access. So all of these start to really come together. They're all related, interconnected. There's a desire to see increased arts experiences in non-traditional spaces. So on that heat map, it's really great that we can see that they're happening in the parks, and we can see who's doing those and what types of organizations those are that are having those experiences in the parks and at schools, who's doing that and how might that be supported. Marketing and communication. So this is a broad kind of stroke. People feel like there's so much information out there, but they don't have the information. So it's so interesting to hear over and over and over again. We don't know where to go to find out things about arts and culture in the city. And, you know, everybody has, but there's this, and there's that, and there's this, and there's that. And the thing is, people don't understand where even to begin the conversation or begin to thinking about it. So marketing and communication is really coming up there. So I'm going to move on briefly to talk a little bit about some work that we're doing, research work that we're doing regarding comparable cities. We're doing this comparable cities analysis kind of as an understanding. It's benchmarking best practices. We're really trying to see where, it's not as much where Dallas sits, but what are some of the opportunities that have been realized by these cities that we can learn from, and what are some of the issues that they have seen, and how can we learn from that as well. So the 4 cities that we are using as comparables are Austin, Charlotte, Denver, and Phoenix, and they're just listed in order of alphabet order. The criteria for the selection of these cities is that they recently completed a successful cultural plan, similar overall population and density, there are large numbers of ethnic and racial diversity, and they've experienced significant population, business, and cultural growth. So all of these cities recently are, when I say recently is 30 years recent, but they've experienced this kind of growth the same way that Dallas has. So what are some of the big points that are coming out of these cities? The learnings we've got right now, that metrics matter. So building evaluation tools into the cultural plan increases the likelihood of strategy completion. So strategies are the things that come out of the plan, the actual action items. So if during the process, if you'll remember, this is actually, you've got 3 things going on here. You're going to, in Dallas, you're going to have, or you have the process, the cultural planning process going on right now. You're going to have a cultural plan that will be delivered to the city council. And then you have the updated cultural policy. So you have this kind of series of opportunities, and building into the cultural plan these metrics so you can make sure that in the course of the execution, you're saying, are we successful here? How should we course correct? How should we do more? How does this go? You'll see in the results, it makes things actually happen faster and enables the city to easily and accurately report. So most plans are developed for, have a structure for ongoing engagement. This was also very interesting throughout the 4 cities. So the process of the cultural plan ended. The plan had ongoing mechanism, created an ongoing mechanism for continual engagement with the city. So that didn't end just because the process ended. Also, the opportunity to achieve quick wins where clear priorities attract resources. So we want to identify just those quick opportunities, and that's actually part of the plan, the quick opportunities that will say, hey, this is a successful plan. Who are the partners that can do that for us quickly? How might that happen? And how can we attract those resources, so those are the partners. So that's a kind of a tenet of a successful plan. And then, sorry, I skipped one. The plans identify affordability and cost of living as major deterrents. So I mentioned that there are issues that all these cities are still dealing with, and affordability and cost of living are still major deterrents to cultural growth, and these cities are still struggling with that. So some relevant strategies that we found across these plans. So there's the blended funding sources. This was very interesting to us. So innovative funding strategies where cities are looking to increase support for arts and culture while reducing the public sector spending. So this opportunity to, the funding strategies, I think I spoke about this a little bit in the beginning, this idea where the roads are going to be paved anyway, so and the money is already allocated for that. How can the arts and culture, how can an artist be involved in that? That money is already allocated. How can it already be allocated there? So it's increasing the support, but you're not taking on more funding there. So I see Jennifer looking at this. I'm going to move quickly. Build a community, not a building. So one of the things you just had the report from Charla about this, the new grant opportunity. So this idea that Dallas has done really well in creating great infrastructure for the arts. You have great buildings. Now is the opportunity to support the organizations that either are going to be in those buildings or organizations that are doing that programming out in the community in buildings that already exist. So you have the infrastructure of the buildings. Now, what are the opportunities for those to support those arts organizations that are doing that work out in those communities? Let's jump to regional cultural tourism is expanding the market for culture, and this is something that you actually are doing now through Visit Dallas. This regional idea, so 1 hour, 2 hour people who can get to Dallas quickly. Dallas is their downtown, if you think about it, right? So where you go to see shows, where you go to have your arts experiences, your diverse arts experiences, attracting those people because they can drive here really quickly. Those are all the plans. So I want to actually bring up Alyssa right quick to talk a little bit about the business plan model, the model for the arts.
I want to make sure we have time for discussion, so I'll ask. I'm Alyssa Hoagland with HRNA Advisors. Our role in the team is really thinking about the business model for the arts, because all of the good things we want to achieve through this plan are only possible if we can pay for them. And so our role is to think about how the value that arts and culture creates can be channeled to support arts and culture funding. And so, as Joy described, we're in the first phase of a 3-phase process. Most of our work on the business model will be concentrated in the second phase. And so right now, what we've done is take a very sort of high-level look at the data to see where the money is going today, and wanted to tee up a discussion among this group about what you see as sort of the opportunities and challenges for funding that you'd like us to focus on next. And so our 3 research questions are: first, how can OCA maximize the impact of its funds? Second, what's the role of philanthropy in supporting a healthy arts ecosystem? And third, what role can value capture play, as Joy was describing, in enhancing the resources available to the arts ecosystem? And so first we looked at sort of the status of public funding today as compared to other cities across the country. And so the size of the bar is the arts funding per capita in each of these other cities. And what we see is Dallas is within the range of normal, right? We always wish there were more public funds for the arts, and perhaps there should be. But we're within the range of what we see in our peer cities, including those that Joy shared. What we also see is that this light-colored bar, which represents the amount of funds that are dedicated to programs, as compared to the dark-colored part of the bar,
that's for facilities is very small. So the vast majority of our funding is going to pay for buildings, whereas in other cities it's going to programs, going to artists. There we go. And this is some data that Charlotte shared with us. We see that the investment in buildings is what's driven a lot of the economic impact that's associated with the arts. You get people flying in from out of town, and they're going to experience the arts at the Nasher, or the AMA, or at ATAP. So when you look at how we efficiently serve people within Dallas, the cost to serve someone through a partner organized program is between a third and a sixth what it costs to serve a single user by paying for facilities. And so when we think about the efficiency of using funds, we're actually better off going to arts programs and to artists. And so what we're interested in is how can the economic impact of the arts be reinvested in programs that reach communities? Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of funds are also going to large organizations as opposed to small ones. And so here, large and very large organizations are those, so large is budgets of 1 to 10 million, very large is over 10 million. And so as we look at where funds are going, we see that arts and artists where we're having that high impact are actually getting a lot less funding than those larger organizations. Philanthropy follows these trends as well. And so here we've got blue bars showing the percentage of funding from philanthropy in Dallas, and orange bars showing the percent of philanthropy by organization size in other cities. And the gray bar is the difference between blue and orange. What we see is that the very large organizations, those with a $10 million budget or higher, are getting more philanthropy than other cities in the country, whereas every other type is getting less. And the reason for this, of course, is the incredible number of capital campaigns that have taken place over the past decade, the extraordinary generosity of this community in investing in facilities. But now that we've sort of finished out the building of the Arts District, we have this incredible opportunity as a community to think about where funds should go next and what the opportunity is to invest more holistically in the arts. Finally, shifting to value capture. Recent studies showed almost $1 billion a year in economic impacts of the arts in this community. And so we're interested in seeing how that economic impact, how that increase in hotel taxes and real estate value, the opportunity that serves communities, whether you're building roads or schools, how that can be turned into funding. We see the efforts of Visit Dallas and others are pioneering that, but we think there's room to move in extending not just the amount of funding that's available, but its distribution. As we focus on value capture, we have to be really careful about protecting the value that arts create. And so this is illustrative data only, this is correlation but not causality. We see in Bishop Arts, right, home values going up and development going up over the past 15 years. And we know, right, as people who live in Dallas, that when a neighborhood is an arts district, it's a place that we want to live. And we see prices going up because everyone wants to be there. The result of this is that you've got residents who are leaving Bishop Arts, some of whom are priced out. And so as we think about the value that arts create, we also have to think about protecting that value, protecting space for galleries and community expression and for artist housing. So our next steps are to take this information and your feedback and to look at prototypical business models. How does an organization support its funding? How does an effort support its funding? We're going to look at 3 to 4 prototypes and then work together as a group to identify sort of cross-cutting trends or cross-cutting policies that can inform the culture plan as a whole. And so as a beginning, I'm really interested in the funding model for major facilities. How can we be more efficient? How can we marshal resources not just in major facilities downtown, but throughout the city? Second, how we protect the value of neighborhood arts, particularly in communities that are suffering from displacement. And third, how can we support some civil rights organizations? That's it for me, and we'll shift to questions. Do we recognize the commission has support? Yes, sir.
Can we get a copy of those slides?
Yes, all of them.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes, yes. All right. Yes, ma'am.
You want to wait for questions, please?
Compared to other cities that have done cultural plans, how has Dallas added up with the public participation? Because to me, that number is fairly low.
3,500. With the in-person, it's actually good, comparatively speaking, because if you think about the fact that we're doing the survey we're doing the online interviews and the social media. You're actually engaging way more people than that, but the in-person engagement is actually very good. The number is good and the quality is good. So, very good. Yes. And I think Jennifer's given us information that, well, I don't want to give it back, comparatively speaking.
You want to start taking questions now directly from commissions? Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Mr. Hondo, and then I saw Mr. Burke.
Have you kind of come up with some conclusions, something that's really surprising me? Chicago is not spending as much money as we are. Houston is not spending as much money as we are. And their reputation is really good. And have you guys kind of sorted through that and came up with some conclusions about what they're doing and what we're doing?
And I'll pull up the slide. So I'm not as familiar with Chicago, where I know you've done a lot of work with, but in Houston, there are other sources of funding that don't necessarily show in the public bucket. So you've got, I don't believe this includes the hot taxes that get channeled back to the arts. And there's also, Houston has a great reputation, but a lot of the facilities were built a generation before those here. And so now the philanthropy that you're seeing on an operating basis is having that impact rather than having to build out buildings in that first generation. That's my hypothesis.
I think the key is, I mean, that's a per capita number. So it's not saying that Dallas spends more than Chicago as a whole, right?
That's true too. Yeah. And to your point, Houston has a much larger city population because they capture a larger geography within their MSA than we do. So as Joy was saying, people come from Maryland and Arlington to experience Dallas and it's our scene. Whereas in Houston, you drive much farther and you're still in the city limits. So it may be that as well.
But I do want to add on this, for instance, in the city of Chicago, I'll start from the perspective of Dallas. Dallas is exceptional in the number of buildings that you as a city actually own and operate. That is exceptional. So in a city like Chicago, for instance, where they have 77 neighborhoods that have dedicated library and park in each one of those places, and the library and the park have perhaps a community or community type cultural center, those places double as your kind of arts providers within the city. But the city of Dallas operating all of these arts and cultural centers, so for Dallas it's community centers, not so much cultural, but for Dallas you all operate so many buildings, it is exceptional.
And the budget shows that.
Yes.
Ken?
It's a lot of data. And it wasn't totally surprising how much we're spending on infrastructure in the large organizations. As you went through that, was there anything, was there an epiphany that happened after through that? Because I didn't see anything new there.
Well, you're ahead of all of us, what can I say? I mean, for media was here.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much more efficient the program dollars were in reaching people. I know that Jennifer and Charlotte were not. I was surprised because that was new to me. So I wasn't surprised about how much they were spending on facilities, but I was surprised that it wasn't the highest impact on every measure.
Okay, and then, so what do you do with that as far as cultural is concerned?
So I think our role is to think about whether we can more effectively invest in these more efficient programs at small organizations. I mean, that's the hypothesis of the question, but what do you think about?
Yeah, I think this is, so what do you think of this? That's actually the point of this conversation, if you'd like to know that.
Well, I think we need to, if Charlotte's able to get us able to support that, we need to figure out where those levers are and adjust those levers. You're right. Because that's truly where is our effectiveness? What is it? What is OCA doing, or who is doing it to make it effective? And from this information, I can't tell what that is. So we just need to understand what that is. Because we're good at it, we just don't know exactly where we're good.
Well, and this tells part of the story, right? This tells
Right.
you that it's more expensive to operate buildings. It may be more impactful, and so I think what we're trying to dig in on is how are the funds reflecting the priorities of the plan and of this group, and then what can we do to better reflect that? So this is where we're looking for your feedback.
You have two words, it's Taylor and Jesse.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's hard to look at it, I mean, my first thought is just to kind of see what the actual relationship is existing. Because I think if an organization is basically dominating the space, that maybe they should pitch in a little bit more. But if there's an organization where they believe, I mean, the city does own those buildings, but the city doesn't want to pay insurance for the roof, they expect the company to pay for that, that's where it gets tricky. So I mean, then that's increasing the amount of dollars being spent too. So, I don't know, I think it takes looking at each individual relationship, that seems to be right.
Are there any that you've seen that are like particularly interesting or challenging that you'd like us to take a look at, like a particular facility or organization?
I know Dallas Heritage Village is struggling with it a little bit, at least with, I guess, who has the onus for maintaining these buildings. Because it seems to me that it's being shifted back and forth in the conversation. At least it's how I understand it.
Did I understand you right? You said Dallas has exceptional, a lot of art buildings than usual compared to the cities.
Yes, yes, and the
Now,
number of arts.
Let me ask you something. Are there in the cities that have art centers throughout their cities? Dallas has a concentration downtown. I don't see very many in some other districts. I saw the spots that you had, and I saw the low turnout. Maybe that's the reason we have a turnout. We haven't concentrated on putting the city dollars in the parks. Are we, how do we take care of that? How do we?
Well, right now, what we're looking at, we are looking at that as an issue, because if we're looking at equity, right, we're looking at offering equitable cultural experiences across the city. And you see, so people are asking for that, and yet on the other side, you have the fact that the city actually operates all of these arts and cultural buildings. But they're not matching up. This idea that you're operating a lot of arts and cultural buildings, but across the city you don't have equitable arts and cultural experiences. So how do we address that? And one of the things that we're looking at right now is how other cities are addressing that. And we're also hearing from the public, how you address it. But what other cities have done is, from the Chicago example, the arts are offered through the neighborhoods, in the libraries, the parks, and the community centers. So that's kind of a way that they're able to see we're offering X, Y, and Z. Then there are also, and within those, they have arts organizations that operate as well. But they fund those organizations, and instead of operating all of these buildings. So it's just research that we're doing right now, but very much what you're asking about is exactly what we're looking at is kind of the, I'll say research question as opposed to problem, but yeah.
We have two more questions here. Darius and then
Just trying to piece it all together. I think a couple things that would be helpful to see would be just the breakdown of, not on a per capita basis, but just out of Dallas's total arts OCA spend, how much of it is going to venues, how much is going to contracts, and then separately, within those programs and contracts, how much are going to small, large, medium organizations that compared with our peers, that would be helpful to see. And then one other thing that I'd really like to see is to help us start thinking through some of the solutions are, how do all our peer cities fund OCA or their version of OCA? You know, is it through the general fund? Is it through the hot tax? Because I'd like to know, like, is the percentage that Dallas gets from the hot tax consistent with, you know, what other cities get, or is it, you know, it's a lot of stuff that I think if you're in the industry you might know, I don't know. And then the other one, I read through a couple of the other corporate plans. One that was really interesting was using TIF funding to support arts, it's more like arts facilities, and really, and it really help, you know, sort of limit the downsides of gentrification, keep the culture there in the neighborhood. So, you know, whether it's, you know, percent for art, hot tax, TIF, I'd like to know the tools that we have available to fix some of these problems and what others.
That is excellent direction for the next phase. Thank you.
So going back to the zip codes and low turnout, what are you all doing to kind of go around that in a sense? Are you guys knocking on doors, in zip codes, having that missionary spirit? I guess, what is the objective to get those other voices?
Yes, we're doing almost that. We are reaching out through organizations, and I'm looking at every person at this table. So many of you have done so much. But if you have inroads into these zip codes, please do let us know, and we will do whatever is necessary to get there, right? So because we're going into with existing organizations, we're going to meetings, we're going to schools. We have this whole new, not whole new, but whole slate of schools that we're going into to have the conversations.
We also, I don't know exactly when this was pulled, but the rec centers didn't kick off their adult programming until mid-January. So we've piggybacked on about 6 or 7 rec centers daytime programming. Same with libraries, schools. Monday, on President's Day, we're doing DISD t-shirt in service for all the arts teachers at Sunset, which was the first Eat 10 service day. So some of this was kind of early on in this year. The last month has been basically a targeted effort at balancing this out. And this was also before at least 4 of the in-district meetings in Southwest, Southeast, and Far North Dallas. So it's just kind of, you know, this was a point in time. So it's been very concentrated.
I mean, we're also going to we've now done 2, and we're going to do Timberland Village ESOL programs. We actually are going, BC is amazing. They have that missionary spirit, and they're going to those classes. And they actually this weekend spoke for an hour with 2 of those different classes.
That's through the libraries.
I mean, yeah, that is one of my concerns as we move forward. How do we engage people who don't already engage in the art ecosystem?
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's one thing to go to a rec center for this, but I want to go out to the people that have no idea that there is a whole program that exists for them.
That's why we're going to, like the ESOL, we're going to the neighborhood watch meetings. So it's not necessarily that these are arts.
Yeah, the rec center was not arts programming. It was the senior program with the senior wellness.
Yes, sir.
I got my presentation in front of the real estate people, investors.
Of this?
This.
This is the first presentation of this material.
No, I don't know. You're going to probably think I'm way out of left field, all right?
That's okay, John.
But you know, we formed these TIF programs for investors. If we're going to give them money or tax breaks, why don't they earmark some money for this kind of stuff, for their building?
May I follow up just a second with that? What concerns me, you were talking about things that you saw, but that you discovered here. And it's really not a new question, it's a very age-old question. It's just as soon as we start talking about neighborhoods being underserved, underdeveloped, under-resourced, underinvested in, cities across the country talk about pulling down support for the arts. This is the worst possible time, something that can happen. That's almost, it's the leverage that you really to do these wonderful kind of things. The TIP conversation is a great tool. We were talking about tools. It's a great tool that has been, I think, thoughtfully designed so it might invest in doing the types of things that leveraging the types of people we want to talk. And that's a public policy that's led. So if they're talking about pulling back, I think we have to find some way in this process to help the public policy makers think more creatively about how to invest economic development in the areas of the arts. We talk about using the economic outcome of the arts as a quote-unquote tool. Well, it's a nice tool on paper, and everybody applauds it, right?
But I need a literal tool, like TIP.
It is, that's right, it's a literal tool, so that's precisely what I'm talking about. It concerns me that when we began here, because not only are cities talking about they're pulling back on those investments, the private philanthropies are talking about the same thing. They're talking about the same thing. And so it just seems to me that in this process, we also have to identify, when we start thinking about what other cities maybe have done or other innovative strategies that we can utilize to continue this development, we might need to think about what negative impact it can have upon us unless we develop some way of packaging with the business plan this information and say that this is some way to move it forward. I'm sorry to take us so much time.
Thank you.
And Lord, and Ben, you and please, you're good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have two things. One very practical and one sort of conceptual. Practical thing that I've been asking for a long time, which I really see now, is where current spending goes by council district. This has been something that we've talked about, but I've never seen it as been presented to the commission. And I don't know that we'd be surprised by what we would find, but it would be very important with tools to be able to visualize where the money goes now. So is that something this is doable?
And I have a follow-up question, because this is, when we think that through, there's sort of where is the building or the facility or the event located by district, which is the easiest to cut, but maybe not the most meaningful, then it's where are the artists living, right, and the funds that artists receive.
I think there's a destination more, either different venues, the art maker has a destination more of the facilities, and obviously the addresses of the facilities are pretty well known, but I think it would be really helpful to see them on a map of all the council districts.
I'd love to see it with where the visitors are coming from. That's something we've been working on, because it's unclear to me the extent to which concentration of assets would change the concentration of visitation. And because the buildings are where we are, I think we have to think about how to make sure we're supporting equitable access.
Exactly, and I think the equity piece is sort of what I want to get now with the second question, which is your presentation and your presentation are both sort of, they're interesting, but I'm not sure I understand how they mesh together or how they're going to mesh together as we go out of the space, or what you call it, into the next phases. Because the findings are one thing and the business model may be completely different. So where do these things come from?
Well, the way that we built the process is that we're doing a heavy lift in the research end. And the research includes, yes, the robust engagement, public engagement, which we talked about, but it also includes this comparable cities research, and it includes this heavy focus on building this business plan or business model for the arts. So the information that we are gaining, this research, that first kind of pool that we're gaining here, is moving us now into phase 2, where they're going to take, our HRNA is taking that information and really going to be able to build further on this business model for the arts that Alyssa has just been kind of showing, kind of almost a preview of the information and gaining from you.
But I think one of the reasons we've had the breaks on is that the purpose of a business model for the arts is to support what the community says that they want. And so we've been waiting and listening for what that is. And so as we go into phase 2, we're taking this information and basically figuring out a funding toolkit that matches the needs of the community. So that's why we haven't started yet.
So Lori
Into you.
asked my questions. I wanted to see a map where the funding is going. What was an interesting conversation at our community meeting was we had a representative from Hackensack who lived in the neighborhood. And he said, you know, the majority of our patrons come from this neighborhood, yet we don't do any programming in this neighborhood. Which was because we're far with Dallas. So
Yeah.
that's just, I want to see where that's at.
Yeah. Interesting. So, and we are going to get that.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo you guys, I think you're on the right track. And we're going to be measuring the efficacy of dollars in programs versus facilities. I think not only do we need to map out the dollars in facilities, but I'd be interested to see what the potential programs are and when they're located. That's a big ask. But not only artists, but a lot of small nonprofits and programs that are thriving in communities around. And yeah, where are they compared to the dollars that we're spending? So that we can really start looking at the crossover potential and the efficacy of our investment.
Can you talk just a little bit about, you said what the potential programs are? Can you talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
well, who's residing, what are they doing?
Okay.
You know, if it's a small theater group or one artist who's having a huge impact with very few resources. And I know
Yes.
that's a big, long
That's
reach, but then it will better inform us on the comparison and the gap between the dollars spent and the lives impacted. And then I suspect it's going to show a huge disparity in the zip code invested, the potential reach in the zip code surrounding. That's my hypothesis. I mean,
If
you're already
that's
pointing
true,
to that.
it suggests that we be focusing on outreach programs and communication.
Yes.
And so I think that that's what Joy was hinting at too.
Right,
So
yeah.
very interesting.
Central Maria and then Kevin.
A question about, another question about reach with the cultural plan, getting feedback from the community. One of the slides that you had showed a small proportion of younger people, right, I think it was 18 and under, and I'm just wondering, like, what kind of strategies around that, penetrating that part of the market, and that's like, those are a feature of our market.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let Jennifer
So
answer.
we actually had some fun with this. If you think about that left bar is 18 and under, and most people probably aren't really able to complete a survey, attend a community meeting, or have an opinion on this until they're maybe 13-ish. That would imply you only need a third of the number of that bar, which is exactly where we are. Because that whole bar is 18 and under, does that make sense? It's from age 0.
So if you were to say just teenagers.
Yeah.
and 15,
So actually, that is on par with the relevant sample. Does that make sense?
We're also going into
Yeah, and we are going into more schools, so we're gonna be over that, but I think that the thing that you miss is it includes ages 1 to 8.
Right, yeah, on the
So-
gray, but not really.
Right, yeah.
I wonder if maybe some of our partner organizations would be a good resource to
Many of
access.
them, that's who we've piggybacked on, and Joy is quite right. In the last couple of weeks, we've hit the schools hard, plus we're doing NTISD, thanks to actually Commissioner Hormickle. So it's growing, but it will never get to be that close, because that would actually be overstating the teenagers.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Ken?
Joy, there's two areas that I hope that the plan will accomplish. One, you've already shown that we've got the need for diversity. And we're seeing that in the community conversations. And I'm talking about diversity from board leadership, of arts organizations, of audiences, and there's a true need for education. And because you'll take a group in, I don't know, take the South Dallas Cultural Center. They consider themselves to be a diverse group. But then I think that there's still opportunities for us to increase diversity, again, based on board leadership and audiences that we're targeting. And I've been with several art groups who are just one culture, one race, but they consider themselves to be diverse, or they're open to any audience that wants to hear us. But that's not what diversity is. So I hope that as you put forward the plan, that there's actually resources that we can train these arts organizations in understanding the value of diversity. Today, there are projects that are not being funded because they're not diverse enough. And I think that's critical. And I don't think it's because people don't want to be diverse. I think it's just we need to educate a little bit more on that diversity. The second thing, we always look at the economic impact of art. But I really believe that there's a social impact that we can have as well. And I always think that I grew up in a home with art, but I did not realize it until I was going into college. So if we're, take for example, the public art, if we choose to put public art in a particular neighborhood, I really believe that there's an anthropological effect to what's happening. I think we can partner with the schools of anthropology to put baseline measurements in place of social outcomes or expected outcomes, or just measuring if there's any impact whatsoever. And I know this is theory, but I think we should look at it. I think we should look at it.
May I respond to that? You're speaking my language, and I love measuring social impacts because I think it's so important that we be able to talk about the importance of art and parks and transit to our communities in addition to just to our bottom line. I will say that that is not our focus in counting it. Like, we believe it, and I believe you can quantify it. And so when I think about social impact, I think about it as a rationale for philanthropic and public funding. And when I think about economic impact, I think about opportunities to tap into that for other sources of funding. So I think our job is to help you make the case for social impact as a way of garnering what I'll call discretionary funds, and then to use that economic impact number to get access to even more funding to invest in the social impact.
And I guess my approach is cost avoidance on social programs that we ensure. So,
Wait, can you repeat?
I said, my slant on is cost avoidance on social programs in the future.
By which you mean vandalism.
Yeah, and you're offering other opportunities for people to live. And I do think that can be measured, which is.
I think so too. And I think maybe what the piece about the baseline, putting the baseline measurements in place, maybe we can. We'll
figure out, I mean, if you'd like to bring in academic partners.
Yeah,
I'd be
that's
interested
the
in
way.
having.
I think that's the way.
Are you guys close enough to that?
Questions?
I'm going to do that. I want to know where you are in terms of your presentation.
Oh, yes, this is absolutely, the presentation is done. This is the question and discussion time. I hope you all felt that.
All right, questions,
Okay.
with a lot of discussions, a lot of great comments. I'm quite
I think Jesse's
excited. There's still a few more left, but I'm going to bring this to a close. Starting with Jesse, please put your hand up because I'm going to go around the table real quickly and see who has any comments to put in. Mr. Jesse.
Okay. If you go to that efficiency slide when it comes to programming versus facilities, is
Yeah, the decision.
I mean, it's fair to say, like, I think based on amounts on allocations, Del's total spend for programming is around $5 million or something.
Charlotte, can you, seriously,
Right now, we're at 6.5 million.
So out of our budget, out of OCA's budget of 20-something million, 6 goes to programming. But that was really interesting to me to see that programming in terms of impact is by far more effective. I mean, that tells a strong story when it comes to how we currently fund versus the efficient way to fund.
Joy, is Thank you, sir.
Just as a clarification, and this is why we need to sort of peel into those numbers. If you were to look at programs versus facilities, we give the Symphony $0.
We maintain the money.
We give them, and so the balance of what is a facility and what is a program dollar in these, especially these big institutions like the DMA and the
That's a $2
Symphony,
million swing.
it needs to be dug into much more.
And I should clarify, this includes both program spending and facility spending at city-owned cultural venues versus partner organized events that are not at city-owned venues.
Well, it raises another just cute question, listening to all the wonderful commentary we've had so far. As we go forward after the next 50 years, because the first 50 years, there was this conversation given to organizations, to programming, or given to, quite frankly, individual makers. It was given to facilities.
It was building.
And that was not driven by arts and cultural focus, like it was driven by a private sector givers. And they were very successful. But what you're hearing, what I'm sort of hearing, is sort of an interest in flipping the script for the next 50 years. Because how you're not going to catch up. But we can make a significant difference if you're looking at the investment outcome and leverage dollar. If there is a significant investment in making, and people who are presenting, the people who are how to use the term social contract, social investments and social impacts, if those are the kind of, that's some of the language to go forward. The question is, what's the kind of business plan that we build for this public policy to allow us to justify getting that move forward?
Yes, sir.
It just sounds that way to me. Come on, other comments, you.
My last comment is a really boring comment, but. Yes, the presentation is great. You know, at the end of the day, we're going to have policy. One aspect of the policy is, you know, the role that the Cultural Affairs Commission plays. I'd just be curious if how we're structured in terms of what we oversee is consistent with other cities. For example, you know, we oversee and have responsibilities with respect to the programming through COP and CPP. But I think what we've discussed is, you know, the biggest chunk of the budget is more facilities. There's no commission oversight over that at all. And maybe that's the way it should be. But I think as part of the policy discussion, it'd be nice to know, you know, are we operating the best? You know, even with our attendance policy, you know, it does need to be tweaked. You know, so
This is the question. Who's the next?
Mr. Smith.
White.
James. I'm sorry, Mr. White, I'm sorry.
I think I understand our discussion about the free flow dollars and the physical facilities. But if you put up that heat map and contrast it with this, the heat map maps very closely to the cultural centers that are extant in the community. Now, you would think that the Arts District would have more, but there's not as many people living down in the Arts District. But if you look at that heat map, I think, it's by zip code, so it's hard for me to figure it out.
That is not, that's where people are
Participating in
people are participating.
I understand, but isn't that an effect of some way of the community's interest in what's going on in their neighborhood? And that
Excuse me, I think here's the answer, because that had used to trouble me, and before I was sort of taken out of the loop, I think I went about 6 or 7 of those things.
I didn't
And
recognize
I'm
the chair,
still
we
having,
definitely.
flashback to all the meetings. I don't think in any cultural planning process ever in the history of the city, I keep hearing about it, but nobody ever went that deep into the neighborhoods before. Nobody ever invited that many different people before. This whole process has been more invitational and more welcoming than any that has historically happened in this city. And quite frankly, in most cities, the only one I know that's kind of close to it, happens to, well, there are two. One's in Boston, which I think is quite close, and they did a very deep dig into theirs. And I would say Salem would be the other one that did a quite deep dig. But we haven't spent the kind of time and made the kind of requests and the kind of invitations to a variety of people historically since the arts have been receiving support in the city. So I think that has an awful lot to do with the kind of attendance we're seeing, the kind of input we're getting. That's why it's so vast.
The chair is exactly correct. I mean, and it's growing. And the participation in this is
Two questions down here, Blas, and then I think I saw Margot. Did I see you have something up?
I had my hand up, but it's been addressed.
Okay, then his hand's down. Ms. Blas.
I want to throw something out that's a little bit more esoteric and less practical in terms of funding and that sort of thing. I think we may be overlooking the value of the artists themselves as a resource in getting the people in their neighborhoods, in where they live, involved in cultural and artistic activities. I think that the artists themselves, where they live, what they do, if we don't give them a place to do that, then we're missing out on the effect that they can have on the people who live near them. There are lots of different ways that that can be done. There are lots of buildings that are falling apart in the city that you give to an artist and say, you fix this up and you can use this as a studio and you can bring kids in and show them what you're doing and give them the opportunity to express themselves. And then suddenly all of those other non-economic social benefits of the arts grow. They just blossom. They really grow. There's research that proves that kids who are involved in the arts think better, they do better in school, they work better with each other, they have better social skills. Those are the kids, when they grow up, they're going to be the city leaders and they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to take the city to the next level and get past all this stuff that we're fighting with all the time now. So that's not very practical, but I think it's something we should think about.
That is,
I think it's very practical.
it's practical and implementable.
Please, can anybody before anybody else besides Ken? Ken, please, Ken.
I just want to add to what Jesse said. In any future presentations, if you could just help us correlate the data to where are we compared to? I mean, everything you put up there, help us anchor that somehow. Because just looking at this for the first time, it's very difficult to interpret. And I know you've like been immersed in it, and you know it back and forth, but I still don't know for sure if we're like leading edge or we're way behind. And I still don't know where we are. That's what I'm
We're happy to offer that, but I think I would say one of the questions that we have is, who should we be comparing you to? Because you are way behind New York. We are way behind New York too, so we are way behind New York. But are we aspiring to be New York, or are we aspiring to be our own thing? That's very much rooted in neighborhood.
That's a good question. And as commissioners, I mean, our focus is thinking about us.
Right.
So as consultants, it's up to you to tell us where you place.
I think what's of value, I will say, I think what's of value, especially in this presentation, we're trying to give you, right now we're getting the research, we're finding this information out, and
And I'm really wrong, it's really good, and I'm just telling you moving forward.
Oh, no, we see what you're asking for, but it's interesting because we're getting information from the public, and we're feeding that to HRNA as they're getting information from the stats and the statistics, and we're like turning that around. They're feeding that to us. So we're trying to, at this moment, build a plane. So as we're flying it, so that's kind of what you're seeing here, and we're looking to you, just as Alyssa said, to tell us which direction, what type of plane do you want to be, right?
So you're still in the research phase.
Let's try to keep it together here for a moment, just for a moment. We're going to close it down. Let me go.
you're in the research phase, so maybe we need to give you a little more time to analyze that research. Because if you can have research for years, you can have this and this and this and this fact, but how do they all relate to what we're talking about?
I got a great answer for you. So, at the end of, well, it really was the end of February, but now it's kind of the second week in March.
Spring break.
Yes, spring break. We're ending the research phase, well, we're ending the phase 1, and we're moving into phase 2. And at the completion of that phase 1, we're going to take a moment, a pause, to actually analyze the information and to actually give you not just what we're hearing, but what we've heard, right?
And what you have extrapolated from what you've heard.
Exactly, exactly.
So I personally don't think we can be New York either, I agree with you, but I would like this to be attractive, so that when the creative class is priced out of living and growing their lives in New York and Toronto and LA, they get out there now and they say, hey, Dallas, we'd just like to do this.
Alyssa moved here from New York.
You were living here 3 years ago, yeah.
Okay, let me just say, I think we've had a very great discussion so far. This is the reason I wanted to have this conversation, at least at this point, so at least you all would have some additional, if you will, insight into what these individuals think. And I hope whatever we do, think about how we can be the best that we can be in terms of who we are, as opposed to trying to be like someone else, but address some of those critical things that I think that you're discovering and that these individuals have mentioned. I think that you have done extraordinary with your presentation today. It's been a pleasure to have you. It's been a pleasure to have the input of each of you. I'm really excited about both of you. So at this point, what I would like to do is turn this back over to the hands of the Executive Director. Thank you again so much for your presentation. You're wonderful.
Well, thank you all so much. And really, as Joy was saying, we are fast and furious. I think now our last meeting is officially March 7th. So they're doing all these industry-focused meetings, so I'm sure you've attended one for theater, or visual arts, or dance. And so those are peppered in, kind of right up to mid-March. So we kind of squeeze those in. But thank you all. I also just personally want to thank you. Many of you have corralled council members' offices. You've attended multiple meetings yourselves. You've gotten friends, neighbors, associates, church groups, choirs. I really appreciate it because staff is small and we certainly don't know the city as well as many of you all do. Thank you to Ms. Johnson in particular last week. I mean, it really goes, it's tremendously helpful because we have a lot of arts groups that have helped. But they sometimes even will say, you know, we've just never done work in that neighborhood. We work at the Y across the major highway or whatever. So I appreciate it. And I think we were in the back and we're over 4,000 easily now, just in the last 3 weeks. And I bet, you know, we'll be knocking on 5 before too long. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
I'd like to just emphasize, if there are any particular questions that you have that come to you after the series over here, shoot an email in to the office, quite frankly, by program or directly to the director. And so at least we can have that information between now and the next meeting. It would be very helpful. I think your input today has been fantastic, quite frankly. I'm just delighted with this level of conversation. Hopefully, we can keep it moving forward. I'm not going to ask for any other kind of reports or announcements, so I thank you for the time that you gave us today. And with that, I'm very happy to call this meeting to an end. Make the meeting
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.